Bias Boutique will cost you 38,000 USD. But what is the real cost out of the factory? Today, I'm going to break it down in front of you, step by step.
These have been some of the most watched and very visible videos online over the past few days as well. If you're a TikTok user, if you're on Instagram as well, people are talking about these starting to appear, but they're essentially these buyers or these videos that they purport to show people that are in factories or different suppliers possibly. Again, none of this is really confirmed, so it's sort of, you don't get a lot of transparency, I guess. But what they're doing is taking items and then breaking down the cost of those items to essentially say that there's a huge inflation that's just based on the Western brand value alone, or the French brand value, because that first video we saw was an Hermes bag, for instance, the Birkin, and saying if you actually broke down all the different components, you're only talking about several $100s, just over $1,000, for instance, versus paying, say, 38,000 US in store.
Yeah, and I would imagine you're actually getting, I wouldn't say you're getting pushback, because we reached out to some of the actual brands themselves and they've declined to comment on this, and whether or not we are actually seeing some of the influencers at the actual factories where their actual goods are created. But I think it underscores the tariff story from a really, this reminds me of decades back of the role Alibaba played when you wanted to find something. You wanted to source something from China. They provided that platform for you. In this case, the information has probably arguably gone a step further and a step deeper. And I think the point that Cameron Johnson was making yesterday, it's, the rules of the game have changed. This is the democratization of information on if you're a buyer in Western markets and you want to be able to understand how much it actually costs for your Jordans or your Lululemon, varied amount of goods that they do, you're actually getting them at very, very cheap. The cost to make them is actually, the margins you get from these companies is actually quite substantial.
Which I think we knew to an extent, of course, that you're always going to have that markup. But I think what's been interesting is just the sheer volume of posts that we've been seeing. And
it's hard to miss them.
Yes. And that kind of questions, is this sort of any sort of calculated attempt? Certainly, it's just another signal of that pushback that we see from China against these tariffs from President Trump.
Yeah, they're reaching out directly to the consumers who are affected themselves.
Oh, let me get this straight. You telling me that my Louis Vuitton and my other few designer bags are made in China?
Your made in Italy Gucci 80% come from Chinese factory.
Listen, I ain't even mad at it. I ain't even mad. I'm mad I spent this much money on these bags. If they're saying that Birkins are being made in China, you already know that Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Chanel, and everybody else is being made in China. That's why I am never impressed by all the money that people spend on these bags. Never be impressed, baby. Never be impressed, because your bag, our bags, was made in China.
1,150 from the boutique. The other 300 made by me.
Have you guys seen that TikTok video that the Chinese guy posted about exposing how luxury goods are made? Basically, most of the luxury brands we use every day are made in China, then shipped to Europe and sold to consumers at a premium. A wedding ring that we can buy for $2, they turn it into $2,000. China is the world's largest processing plant. You buy Gucci, 80% is made in China. Prada, 60% is made in China. Even Chanel, Fendi, Louis Vuitton, Adidas, Nike, etc. The only difference here is that China sends them to Europe and they put some little label on them that says made in France, made in Italy. It's ridiculous. While people are still criticizing H&M for being cheap and of poor quality, those expensive and good products that you think are made in France and Italy are actually from China.
It ain't no way we've been getting finessed like this, y'all. And China just exposed it all. So boom, Americans out here dropping $800, $1,200, and even 4,000 and more on designer clothes, thinking it's all luxury, all high quality clothes, the high end stuff. But China just pulled the curtain back and showed the world that most of the stuff is made in the same factories with material that costs a fraction of the price. So we're talking shoes that cost $30 to make, but it's being sold in US for $700. And we're talking hoodies that cost $10 to make, that's being sold for over $300. And jeans that cost $50 to make, that's being sold for $500 to $1,000. That's not high end. That's robbery, y'all. And this is the crazy thing. This is not even new. A lot of people just been blind to it. They think it just because they got a fancy label, that means it costs more. In reality, that just means the mock-ups is better. China basically said, here y'all go. Now y'all better act like you know. And now everybody mad. They not mad at China. They mad at the brands that been overpricing this stuff they've been buying. They mad at the brands that they've been worshiping. They seeing now. They were never buying quality. They were buying status. And they finally waking up. All of this happened because of this tariffs. People would have never knew. Or some people was really too blind to even notice the fact. But now everything is front and center for everybody to see.
For years, I like nice stuff, just like everybody else. I like to look good. I'm an older man, so of course I got to keep my game right. And I thought I was really making myself feel good because for the first time in my life, after what I went through in my life, I feel like I was on a come up. I feel like I was leveling up in life, And so as time went on, I started buying Gucci, all kind of designer stuff, man. This is just, this ain't even trying to boast, man. This is basically I feel like crap. But I still thank China for exposing everything. We already knew, especially me as an adult, that we do get overpriced for stuff when we go buy stuff. But just to find out that these shoes right here, I wore these in my intro on my YouTube channel 3 years ago, 4 years ago when I did my first intro, when I first hit 200,000 on my main channel on YouTube. And I paid $1,700 for these at the Gucci store. I found these online, man, $9.99 in China. $9.99. And I wore these in my intro. And seeing what I'm seeing, how China exposed everything, it just really made me rethink of all the money that I threw away, And so as time went on, I continued to buy more Gucci stuff. I never really bought a Gucci belt or like a Gucci hat or like the Gucci collared shirts. I never bought that type of stuff. But I really fell in love with the Gucci slides. So about a few months after the intro, I went on to buy these, which had became one of my favorite pair of Gucci slides. These were like $4.50 a few years ago. I found these same shoes in China, $1.57, man. $1.57 in China. It's a slap in the face, bro. And throughout my career, as I continue to blow up on YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff, and I started to make more money, the more Gucci that I wanted. So it became like an addiction to me, wanting Gucci and all that. And so I went on to buy more Gucci slides, and because when you on social media, you start making that money, you start leveling up a little bit. You kind of want a little bit more. It's not really to flex up for everybody else. It's really to make yourself feel good. And I did a TikTok earlier in the garage, where I was destroying another pair of my Gucci slides. They were one of the very first pair of Gucci slides that I've ever owned. And those Gucci slides cost me $400 and something when I first bought them. Coming to find out, those shoes only cost 97 cents, man. So it's a slap in the face.
Did you know?
First of all, after finding out what I just found out about the U.S. and China, I want to say I'm highly ticked off. I'm highly upset. 3 years ago, I paid $450 for these Gucci slides at the Gucci store right here in Houston, Texas. And now China done exposed the fact that these shoes right here only cost 75 cents to produce. You know what? Real Gucci slides. I'm done. These Gucci slides. You know what? That's over here. China, listen. If y'all watching this, China, I have nothing against y'all. I want to personally say thank you. What they did was wrong. 75 cents for Gucci slides. I got about 15 pair of these things in my damn closet. What the hell's going on, man? 75 cents. How much were these to produce? How much were these, huh? Were these another one of those famous slides that Valentino that only cost 10 or 12 cents? Listen, I'm buying direct now from the manufacturer. I'm finna start buying manufacturing straight directly. So basically, these are fake. These are basically fake. That's what y'all tell me. I'm upset, man. So I've been walking around with fake Gucci slides on the whole time. You mean to tell me I could have just walked into a knockoff store and bought these same Gucci slides for $10 or $12? Nobody would have knew that they was fake. Like, people say it's the quality, but nobody's going to walk up and say, hey, let me feel the quality of your Gucci slides. Hey, let me feel the quality of your Amiri to see if it's real. I'm upset, man. China, thank you for exposing me. This is how I feel about these Gucci slides. Thank you again, China. We, as Americans, appreciate you guys exposing the truth. Thank you. So the reason why I'm up late tonight, because I'm going through my collection and I'm looking at all the money that I spent on all these slides. I probably got 25 pair of Gucci slides. And when I think about the money that I spent on these Gucci slides, I could have started a small business. You know, I could have used that money to really help somebody in need. And if it wasn't for China exposing the truth, I would have went on with my day-to-day life, not really caring and stuff like that, you know, and just continue to support these designers and buy Gucci. But I realized, man, I was supporting nothing but a scam.
The way China is spilling the beans on these luxury brands, okay? But the DH girls try to tell y'all. They tried to tell y'all, okay? When that Chinese man got on his app and said all the luxury items are made in China and they only go to Italy to have the tag put on it, the designer tag, and once that designer tag is put on it, now it can say made in Italy because only that small little percentage was actually made in Italy, but that's all it takes to say made in Italy. Now it makes it over here to our designer boutiques and we're spending thousands upon thousands of dollars for something that was in fact made in China, not Italy. I don't care how much you're spending on a thing. Chances are it is coming from China. The only part that was actually made in Italy was when they put the designer tag on there. And this is why the wealthiest of wealthy people buy inspired by items. Why? Why would you spend the whole day? Listen, I did a whole series on Birkins, and in one of the, you can see it in my like viral things I have pinned up there, but one of the videos was talking about the Birkin sort of like Tupperware party that all the wealthy Upper East Side women in New York have. They're not spending money on real Birkins. They're not shucking and jiving for Birkin. They call the people over in China and get the same things. Yeah, so if you know, that people actually have Birkin connects direct to manufacturer. That's how they're getting them made. But the wealthy people, The people who are not like going through the foolishness of the Birkin game. The people who could care less because they don't need to look rich. They're actually not trying to look rich because they are wealthy. That's the difference. Those are the people I'm talking about. But y'all,
if your TikTok is not full of Chinese content right now, then you are definitely lost, especially if you're into fashion or you're an online vendor or business owner. So apparently, because of the tariff wars going on between the United States of America and China, Chinese manufacturers are exposing the big brands. Adidas, Nike, Gucci, Dior, Louis Vuitton, name them. Chinese manufacturers are like, oh, tariffs you say. Let's play this game. American people or everyone in the world, you like these big brands, right? Okay, their location is XYZ and Guangzhou. Their manufacturers are XYZ, and here are their products. I have literally seen Chinese manufacturers threaten big brands. I literally saw a video where this manufacturer said, you see that Chanel bag you buy in that boutique for $100, you can actually get it for $5 back here. So make the move. They are literally playing the Uno reverse card. Now, I do not know how this tariff war is going to end, but if it doesn't, it's going to be beneficial for us, Banku wearers, and it's going to cause a little problems. But I think everything will be fine eventually.
You was using your hard-earned money. Some people, their whole checks for the month, 500, 800, 1,000, 3,000, 6,000 for knockoffs. We're worth $15. This whole time you thought you were getting the best clothes from Italy? Nah, it was just knockoffs from China. And I'm kind of confused on why exactly they're doing this. Really a slap in the face of the people that love designer. A huge slap in the face. They're sending a message to the Americans like, you might as well not buy this. It's a waste of time. I think I can see why the upper class don't buy designer. It's usually how they keep the poor people poor. How many young individuals die for designer? Literally, people have lost their lives to get designer. This can be a very good thing for the future, though. It's these huge, big corporations that keep the young people poor. Like, as soon as you get a little bit of money, you want to give it to the higher-ups. I keep your money, bro. You was getting scammed this whole time. And the worst part about it is now if you want to sell it, people are going to be very hesitant to buy it. There's nothing wrong with liking designer, but just buy the fake stuff. Nobody going to know.
you know the tariff war is getting bad because ain't no TikTok in China. So how are they all landing on our FYP? Now, I know you've been seeing this guy all over your FYP. Well, he goes by the name of Sin Bags, and he's basically been exposing luxury brands, their costs, and how you can get these bags directly. Albeit you won't get the label, but you'll still get the quality material. And you've also probably been seeing this woman here. Well, she goes by the name of Luna, sourcing China, and she lets you know the distributors for some of your favorite clothing brands, including Lululemon. Now, people have been trying to figure out, why are these people coming across FYP? Well, here's the thing. We've gone through a tariff war with the United States and China. And China has started to reduce their regulations on a lot of things, which includes counterfeiting. If you guys didn't know, China is an authoritarian regime. And so they have strict guidelines when it comes to counterfeiting because prior to all the tariff wars, they used to have a relationship with the U.S. And China used to honor patents as well as trademarks for a lot of these luxury brands. Until the trade war happened, and then they just said, F it. Now, before the trade war, we were still able to get those dupes from the gate, if you know what I will. But that's because most of those distributors hadn't got caught yet. Because again, prior, China had this like, if we don't see it, it's not occurring type of policy. But if they did see it, then they would be taken down. And that's why a lot of those Gate, Alibaba, AliExpress type of companies would often go down. And it'd be really hard to find those distributors again because they would get caught. And then they would have to come back and rebrand as a new name, even though they still had the same material. But now that those regulations have been dropped, you're going to start seeing a lot more of these distributors basically just selling directly to you. And what makes the story even more funny is that TikTok's not in China, y'all. It's not there. It's under a different subsidiary name, but it's not TikTok. And those apps don't cross. So the fact that you're seeing these videos makes it even more hilarious.
So China's taking on Donald Trump's tariffs in a way that a lot of people are not yet talking about. China is exposing a lot of the most luxury brands for being manufactured in China. And basically what China is saying is that you don't need to pay $10,000 for this bag or $100 for those leggings. You can get that bag for $100, those leggings for $5 from us. And essentially what this is doing is it's going to take the power away from those billionaires running the West and giving it back to the rest of us. We can make the decision of where we spend our money. And a lot of these brands Prada, Lululemon, Burberry, Armani, Dolce & Gabbana, Gucci, Michael Kors, Nike. All of these are just being exposed, and the fact that you can just go buy these direct from warehouse, and they're not actually as special as you think they are. This is going to have some pretty big ripple effects.
America, that designer that you've been spending your money on, $200, $300, $400, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, all of your hard-earned money basically been going to knockoffs, if that's what y'all want to call them. Canal Street specials, if I might say. China is basically saying that your favorite designer gets their bags, their clothes, their shoes made in China, not Italy. So when you thinking you getting the finest of threads, you getting them from China. And now China is saying that they got them for the low, like they been had them, but they just not keeping it a secret no more. So what they're saying is that designer that we've been wearing, they've been making, and they make them for cheaper, and we might as well not buy that designer that we've been buying. It's kind of strange to me because a lot of people been losing their lives to get designer. It's a lot of people that lost their lives over designer. And you're telling me that China's been making it? All I can say is this trade war is exposing the real from the fake and the fake from the real, if that makes sense. I'm out.
Are the brands we use every day overcharging us? My short answer is yes, and here's why. I believe that most people are aware of these, but for the people who may not know, what they reviewed is actually pretty shocking, because for products that are sold in hundreds or even thousands, actually just cost a fraction of a price to manufacture. So how does these brands justify such insane markups? It comes down to this: we are not buying the product, we are actually buying the story. Brands spend millions of dollars each year into marketing strategies designed to make us feel a certain way, be it making us feel more confident or giving us a sense of identity or even selling you a status. Remember, they don't just sell a product, they sell the results of you owning it. And because we attach emotion into what we buy, we often do not question the price we pay. We want to feel successful, we want to be stylish, we want to be somebody, and branding gives us this feeling. So the next time you buy something, think about what you're actually paying for. If it still makes sense to you, then sure, go ahead. But at least now you are making a more informed decision.
So wait, let me get this straight. For years, we've been called conspiracy theorists about big corporations just slapping the Made in America or Made in France logos on everything. And all of these products